Talk of space wars tonight and whether or not we are ready for them. But the immediate battle appears to be in this orbit.
I would reject wave and crisis. Those are mishaps that occurred. We're going to look at each one in turn. Each one is tragic. We regret each one. We'll look at them carefully. I'm certainly not prepared to say that it's a wave of mishaps or some form of crisis.
He is talking about 3 separate aircraft crashes this week that claimed the lives of 5 American service members, including these Marines who died Tuesday in a helicopter crash in California. Officials insisting that this week's crashes are not connected to each other. There have now been 5 non-combat accidents this year alone, killing 9 service members. Last year, there were 37 aviation deaths. That is nearly double the number in 2016, which raises, obviously, a lot of questions about how to keep our members of the service safe. Joining me now, Rebecca Grant, a national security and military analyst who has worked for the Air Force. Rebecca, good to have you here tonight. So the first question is what your read is on the tragedies that we have seen unfolding one after the other.
Those crashes are not going to turn out to have any technical linkage. They are linked by the fact they remind us of the sacrifice and the patriotism of those air crews. But they're 3 very different systems. We have to wait for the accident reports, but the crash of the 88B, I suspect that's going to be a maintenance issue. That pilot was very lucky to eject. He did very well. With the Marine helicopter crash, we don't know the causes yet. The Air Force Thunderbird F-16, that's a very highly rated aerial maneuver team, and we'll have to see what caused that tragic accident there. But they're going to be unrelated. That said, there is a crisis in military aviation. We need newer aircraft for our crews, and they need more funding and more flying hours.
Yeah. No doubt. And as General Mattis says, you know, we have the funds in our country to do this safely, and that has to be the priority. I do want to ask you about this other fascinating report about space wars and whether or not we need a separate space force in our military to fight them. Here's the president referring to this, and then right after that, we'll hear from the Air Force, the director of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Let's play these sound bites.
My new national strategy for space recognizes that space is a warfighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea. We may even have a space force. We'll develop another one, Space Force. We have the Air Force, we'll have the Space Force.
I believe we're going to be fighting from space in a matter of years. And we're the service that must lead joint warfighting in this new contested domain. It's not only our destiny, it's what the nation demands.
You know, I think of Star Wars and you imagine, you know, battles that happen in outer orbit even. It's a stunning future, but, you know, the way that we watch things happen, it's fairly predictable that we will be fighting up there, isn't it?
It is, and what's driving this is that Russia and China have both developed counter space capabilities. And Martha, our satellites are so important to our military and to our daily life and to the global economy. We have to protect those satellites on orbit because of the advantage they give our military forces, and also for the precision, navigation, and timing and everything they do that's laced throughout our daily lives. I mean, when you think about space war, forget ISIS and terrorism. This is something that could affect every single American if it comes to pass. We're going to be talking about this for the next several years.
Because so much of our technology is on these satellites initially, right? I mean, you can take out someone's satellite and you can basically put them in a situation which you say we practice already, our military, which is called a day without space, and you say it's pretty ugly.
Yes, our military depends. Think of all our deployed forces, ships, bombers, even our folks on the ground, all rely especially on that GPS constellation and on other warning and timing. So our forces exercise without space, but we have some very important constellations. Take, for example, we have 4 missile warning satellites. They have great heat seekers, but they're about as maneuverable as water buffaloes. So they sit up there and they watch a North Korean missile launch, for example. They pick up the plume and tell us where that missile may be heading. They're absolutely vital to world stability, but they're vulnerable to jamming, they're vulnerable to other interference. And so our doctrine now is to say, hey, Russia, China, anybody else, don't try it. We're going to start defending our space assets and have a strategy so that we can compensate for any interference with our space capabilities.
Incredible. I can't wait to see how this plays out. Rebecca, thank you so much. Fascinating. Great to have you tonight.